Before the video begins, I was recently hacked and lost control of my channel, causing a lot of people to unsubscribe because the hacker streamed a crypto scam. A lot of damage has been done to my position in the YouTube algorithm, so taking 2 seconds to click a few buttons would help me out a lot. The deck that I'm playing today, I was actually never planning to play on this channel again. I'm going to be running back a league with my own brew, Black Market Connections Shadow. This is a list that I designed to utilize incidental life loss black cards in Legacy to support Death Shadow and have a degenerate combo to steal wins. I decided to play this deck again as a few viewers were winning tournaments with this list, so I wanted to see if I could do well with it again. First, the degenerate combo is with Helm of Obedience. Any graveyard hate for the opponent in Douthie and Leyline allows you to use 1 mana with the Helm, and it will mill the opponent's whole deck because of the card's awkward wording. This combo alongside loads of ramp in the deck makes it easy to kill as soon as turn 1. To support this combo, we have a value plan alongside it with a load of black card draw. Some people hate this deck, some people love it, but as it's put up multiple results and our last league and video we went 4-1, I thought I had to try it again. To start the first round, we're on the play and we keep a good hand. While this looks weak at first, Leyline of the Void is one of our combo pieces and we have a ton of mana, so top decking something like Helm of Obedience is almost an instant win if we're not playing against a counterspell deck, and any card advantage or card draw that we can find will lose its life to support the Death Shadow alongside the Ancient Tomb. With the opponent leading with the Flooded Strand, I decide to tap the Ancient Tomb on the end step because we want to get this Death Shadow down fast, and like a beast we rip Black Market Connections off the top. Now I am afraid of Daze, but I don't particularly want to play Chrome Mox and pitch one of these good cards in our hand, so I'd rather just play the Black Market Connections and get blown out if they have Daze. But unfortunately, the opponent brainstorms in response and they always have it, which is why, I'm just kidding, the Black Market Connections hits the table and we're going to be losing a lot of life. The opponent uses a fetch land to shuffle away their brainstorm and cast a Ponder, which they end up not shuffling. We draw a Dark Ritual, so I put Black Market Connections trigger on the stack and use all 3 modes. Not really knowing what the opponent is on, I just decide to play the Death Shadow and pass the turn because I want to be wary of something like Swords to Plowshares. But the opponent makes it clear that they're on Stoneblade when they play a Stoneforge Mystic, find a Caldra Complete, and cast a Ponder, so in response I decide to Snuff Out. Now this is actually a big problem when they Force of Will us because we're at 6 life and it's very easy for us to die to the Caldra Complete, and that's because of the wording of Black Market Connections. Black Market Connections is not a May, it says choose 1. Which means you have to at least lose 1 life and make a treasure, as that's the least amount of life you can lose. So in this spot, I decide to draw a card to try and dig for Helm of Obedience to instantly win the game, but sadly we don't get there. And then I proceed to do the wrong maths, as I completely miscalculated how much damage the opponent would do because trample and doing simple maths is very difficult for a person like me, so we end up just dying to the Black Market Connections trigger, so I concede on the upkeep just to avoid the extra clicks. Going into boarding, I bring in 3 Opposition Agent and a Snuff Out, and I decide to take out all 4 Death Shadows because they're going to be playing something like Swords to Plowshares, and I think this matchup is all about comboing faster. Going into game 2, we're on the play, and we have a Leyline of the Void, Helm of Obedience hand. This is the nuts. What we can do is bait out a counterspell with the first Helm of Obedience, and then if we draw a land, we can cast the second one to set up lethal. This is perfect. So I'm just going to play my Swamp and say go because we don't want to sacrifice the City of Traders. The opponent plays a Shuko, which shows that they're actually on Cephalid Breakfast, which is a combo deck that mills their whole deck and then flashes back Thassa's Oracle with Dread Return, which is something that I picked up on in game 1 when they hardcast the Narcomoeba on the last turn. Anyways, this is the perfect time to go for the combo, but sadly the opponent has the first Force of Will, but it's not the end of the world because we have the other Helm of Obedience. The opponent just untaps, plays a Stoneforge Mystic and gets Caldra Complete, and we're really hoping to draw a black card here or a mana source so that we can actually kill with Helm of Obedience and also play around Daze. Drawing a land is the worst card off the top of the deck, so we're just going to have to hardcast the Helm of Obedience and try to go for it next turn. As the City of Traders sacrifices itself, we can't land go and go for next turn with 5 mana. So we play the Helm, and the opponent has the Daze. So, yep, that basically seals up this game. Sometimes the opponent just has all the counterspells. I did review game 1, and there were a few decisions that we could have made differently in the first game, but this game I definitely think I liked all the spots where we just went for the kill. Going into the next round, the Magic Gods bless us and let us be on the play, and we have a decent hand with a turn 1 Douthie Voidwalker using the Chrome Mox and can set up this Death Shadow with the Snuff Out and top decks off the top. The opponent goes deep into the tank and then plays a City of Traders and uses a Simian Spirit Guide to put out Fable of the Mirror Breaker, making a 2-2. Now it jump cut there because my magic online at the time was lagging a ton, I have no clue why, but the swamp off the top doesn't help, so we're kind of forced to snuff out so that they can't fix their mana if they have no other red sources, and I just attack him with a Douthie. The opponent then discards some junk to the Fable of the Mirror Breaker, plays a land, sacrifices their City of Traders, and casts an Anointed Peacekeeper. They name Death Shadow, and we draw a Death Shadow. Really unfortunate because we can't even cast it, so we gotta ship the turn back. Surprisingly, the opponent actually attacks me for 3, which fuels up the Death Shadows, and I draw a Nurturing Peatland. Now what I could do is play the Nurturing Peatland, tap it so I can cast a Death Shadow, but I actually lean in on sacking it because we want to draw for a Helm of Obedience as fast as possible because that will win us the game with a Douthie on the table. Not only that, but we had such good draws like Black Market Connections, Thoughtseize, Night's Whisper. There are a lot of cards here that we wanted to see, and our deck just drew us lands, which happens sometimes. It's surprising because we have a very low land count. Anyways, the opponent blows us through the roof here by casting another Anointed Peacekeeper. They name Death Shadow again, which means that each Death Shadow now costs 5 mana, and then they go deep into the tank, and they use a Fury, and they copy it, and they bash in, putting lethal on the board. Really rough game, but yeah, it happens sometimes, your deck can let you down. For boarding, I just brought in 1 Snuff Out and took out a Night's Whisper because we need removal spells against all their annoying creatures. And on the play, game 2, we have a really good hand. We have a turn 1 Black Market Connections, and then we can set up for a Turok very soon afterwards. The opponent just plays a Plateau and says go, and we rip Dark Ritual off the top, so now we can use all 3 modes of Black Market Connections, use the Dark Ritual, use the Ancient Tomb to lose 2 life, and we can cast Turok and Death Shadow to put our opponent very far behind. Now the Turok trigger resolves, they discard 2 cards and instantly scoop the game, so let's move on to game 3. We have a very nice hand to start off game 3 because we have a Dark Ritual into Dauthi Voidwalker into Thoughtseize, which will really disrupt the opponent's hand and potentially give us a bomb to cast. The opponent starts off with City of Traders, Lotus Petal, and plays a Fable of the Mirror Breaker, and we rip Snuff Out off the top. So now it's time to Dark Ritual and Dauthi Voidwalker plus Thoughtseize. Now this is actually a difficult decision. Obviously the first Thoughtseize is meant to take Seasoned Dungeoneer because the initiative mechanic is very powerful, but then there's a few things I need to think about. First, they have no other mana sources in their hand, so they need to dig with Fable of the Mirror Breaker to find it. Second, if they play a mana source or a land for turn, City of Traders will be sacrificed, meaning that they can mana screw themselves. Third, the Goblin token is the only thing providing a mana source here, and I do have Snuff Out. And the fourth thing is that Path to Exile can target my Dauthi Voidwalker to stop me from casting the Seasoned Dungeoneer. So my 2 options are this: I can either Snuff Out the Goblin token and hope that they don't find a white source, or I can use Chrome Mox, pitch the Snuff Out, and Thoughtseize away the Path to Exile to almost guarantee that they don't have a removal spell. I decide that the best play here is to actually Snuff Out the Goblin token, and that's because not only will they have to discard a lot of cards to dig for a white source, if they find a white source then they have to sacrifice the City of Traders, mana screwing themselves, and also I just don't want them to get a load of treasures because this Goblin token will stick around for a while if I pitch it to the Chrome Mox, and I can just Thoughtseize next turn. Hopefully I've actually managed to communicate my thoughts on this process here effectively, but I think that it's better to try and mana screw them, and if they do find a white source off the top, then they have to sacrifice the city. We start off with a Thoughtseize on our turn 2, and the opponent has another initiative creature in hand, so we take that and then cast the other one from the exile. We get a basic swamp out of our deck, play that basic swamp, and just ship back the turn. Now things get even more awkward when the opponent plays a third Fable of the Mirror Breaker, meaning that there are a ton of creatures on the board. We scry 2 with the Undercity trigger, but then we find Night's Whisper into Night's Whisper, and things are looking terrible for us because they're about to get the initiative back and also pressure us with a ton of tutus when we're at 8 life. Now we do manage to find the Helm of Obedience combo, which means that if we can find a Dark Ritual off the top, then we can win the game, but yeah, we need to find a mana source off the top here or we're gonna lose. The opponent takes their turn, uses the Fable of the Mirror Breaker triggers, and then they copy one of the Goblin tokens and bash in with everything. We block one of the tokens that isn't a copy, and then they cast an Anointed Peacekeeper post-combat to name Helm of Obedience, essentially locking up the fact that we are now dead. So yeah, that's going to be this match. I feel like we kind of got unlucky in this matchup, but who knows, maybe this deck is just bad. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think so far of this deck. Going into the third round, we again are on the play. Thank you, Magic Gods. We need to be on the play to get lucky. And we have a Dark Ritual Thoughtseize Turok hand, which is perfect because we can turn 1 Thoughtseize and then turn 2 Turok. To even make this hand more insane, the opponent mulls to 5, so now let's shred their hand apart. What's even better for us is when we Thoughtseize them, we see that they are on Oops All Spells, one of our best matchups because we are a deck with not only a ton of disruption, but main deck Graveyard Hate, and this deck crumbles to Graveyard Hate. So what we're going to do is Dark Ritual, Toolrock, kick the Toolrock, rip their hand apart, and start attacking. From here, the opponent was just too low on resources, and after we cast a Night's Whisper and a Thoughtseize, they decided to give up because the Toolrock pumps to 5 and they were on a 4-turn clock. Going into boarding, I decided that Black Market Connections is too slow for this matchup, and Trinisphere does much better job, as well as Opposition Agent is probably a bit better than Snuff Out. Going into game 2, we have a decent hand. Typically, I would mulligan to Leyline of the Void against them on the draw game 2, but because the opponent mulligans to 6, I decide to keep this hand because we have a turn 1 Dothy Voidwalker. If they didn't mulligan, I would have mulliganed because you need Leyline of the Void if they keep 7 because they most likely have a nutted hand. Yeah, well, they ended up having the turn 1 kill. They use Undercity Informer, they mill their whole deck because they have no lands in their deck, they get 4 Narcomoebas back, and then they use Cabal Therapy to get rid of Surgical Extraction if I had it in hand, and then now they Dread Return the Thassa's Oracle to win the game. Anyways, going into game 3, we have the absolute Mega Nuts. I'd be really surprised if they can efficiently beat this. We did see when they milled their whole deck last game that they only have 1 Force of Vigor and 1 Foundation Breaker as a way to destroy Graveyard Hate, so with only 2 ways to destroy Graveyard Hate, and the fact that I have a Thoughtseize in my hand for turn 1 means that even if we miss a few land drops, we are probably in such an insane spot. Anyways, we Thoughtseize them, and their hand is all mana and a Spy. I decide that I should take the Spy here because then the opponent not only has to draw Graveyard Hate, but then they have to follow up with an extra combo piece, which means that they need about 3 cards on average off the top to win this game, which gives us a ton of time. Now we proceed to whiff a few draw steps, which doesn't really matter. You know, the opponent is playing some useless mana sources. We draw a Leyline of the Void, not too great. We just need 1 mana source. So yeah, the opponent's not doing much, we're not doing much. It's probably fine. It gets a bit awkward when we have to go to our discard. And they have a Force of Vigor on our end step. Now they've only had 3 draw steps, so they need to have top decked a combo piece off the top. So we should still have a bit more time, as we know that they only have 1 random card left in hand. Yes, that is right. My opponent drew, in a row, green card, Force of Vigor, and combo piece to beat my hand. And to sum up this video, and we lose. Not much left to do. As always, if you enjoyed this video, then please check out this gameplay video that I uploaded this week. Thank you guys for your support, and I'll catch you guys soon.